think just when you arrive, it's so arrestingly different than any school that I've ever experienced. It's an urban school. That's how they see themselves. That's the kind of the identity that they have. And you get that from the moment you arrive. There are some schools where when school begins in the day, the cars line up, the buses line up, everybody arrives at the same time. And often they're brought by their parents or by a bus driver, the students are. But the York School, every student that we spoke to takes a subway. And that's very exciting. When they arrive in their own time, they're responsible for taking care of that. They don't arrive when the bus arrives, they arrive when they arrive. And so they have to manage those things. So it gives a great sense of independence. But they're also in the milieu of the city. So they're taking the subway with all those people who are going off to work. They're just really in the thick of it. And I think, what does that say to you as a person? I think it creates a sense of your own identity as you are also going off to do something today. You're also going off to do something meaningful. And you are a part of this greater experience, the greater experience of the city. And the York School, it doesn't look like a school from the 60s, but it really has that's its birthplace. That sort of forward-looking, let's do things different. Those are the traditions that it has. And I think it always distinguishes itself in that way. Again, being very forward-looking, very conspicuously taking on the International Baccalaureate when other schools hadn't really gotten to that point yet. And so it gains this sense of its reputation through the way it behaves and through what it presents to its students. We can make too much of how school looks or what it feels like when you're in that structure, what the architecture of it is. But the York School is so distinctive in that way. The current head of school at that time took the architect to look at the spaces that he wanted the school to look like and to feel like, and they were university spaces. The idea was that we want to prepare these kids for where they're going so that when they get to university, that's a familiar experience to them. And not just in the way that it looks, but in the way that they operate and behave within those spaces. And if you go to the junior school, you go in, and it's these beautiful, clean lines, wood. It's modern without feeling too modern. It just feels very comfortable. Valerie Turner is the head of that school now. When I asked her what she loves about the school, I love what she said. She said, I love that when I open the windows, she's referring to the windows in her office, she can hear the kids playing outside. I just thought that was such a great answer because it really tells you something about how she sees the work that they're doing. And the senior school, the middle and senior school, it feels very professional and yet very of the minute. That's the reputation that they've grown into. And in some senses, those reputations came before even the current structures, that it distinguished itself in that way. Unlike the other schools that you think of first, maybe at times in the past at least, that you would think of first as private schools in Toronto, they really bear the weight of these long-standing traditions. And the York School really never has. It really kind of just existed above all that. When I was talking to students in a classroom and I said, what do you like about the school? And one girl said, I like these people. I mean, that's happiness too, right? Like, it's not just yourself, but it's about finding yourself within a community that you feel part of. That's a very telling indicator of the health of the school. You know, the school started in 1965. Barbara Goodwin-Zebot, she had this idea to do something differently. And that was a product of the 60s, of when people were really taking a new look at what education is and how it can be improved and really looking at different things. And she wanted it mostly at that point just for her kids to have a different experience and for the people she knew to have a better academic experience or a new academic experience, one that was looking forward, that was more progressive, again, bringing on all those ideas that were really in the air in the 1960s. I think the students really take on board all those lessons of independence that I think the whole situation kind of sets them up for. They see themselves as individuals, they see themselves as having unique talents that they can bring to the thing. But they do, I think, generally, maybe they don't all arrive this way, but they grow into this idea of just being an independent individual. So when you go to boarding school, you can expect that there's going to be a high number of international students, but this is a day school, and 20% of the students are international. And on any given year, it's something like 35 or 40 different nationalities are represented within the student body of the senior school. That's pretty amazing. I think it's a product of where the school is. It's in Toronto. It's a very international city. It also teaches the IB. So you have these students that are with families that do, their parents are traveling between countries. And it really adds an interesting layer to the student experience. I think a very valuable one. And there was one girl who was telling me that she arrived from Denmark. Her father had been working in Denmark, and now they were in Toronto. And one of the benefits she saw to the IB was one I'd never thought of before, and that was that her friends in the world out there in Denmark and other countries, she'd been to all these countries, her family had traveled around quite a bit, they're all studying the IB, and so she could call them up literally or message them or something, and what are you doing in calculus today? It's the same thing. That was one of the draws for her to go to the York School, was because of the IB. I think if there's one thing that most, maybe all the students share is they really are academic. They really do position themselves as academics. They are aspirational. That develops its own sort of rigor. The content is there and we have to work our way through the content, but then what do you do with it and where do you take it? It's not competition in terms of who got the best mark. But there is that sense of everybody rising to the occasion and having a sense of the responsibility to meet the challenges around them. The York School has an academic counselling program really like no other. And I think it really is a touchstone for the entire experience that the kids have when they're there. Because it's not just about saying, oh, you're entering whatever grade, it's time to start thinking about your applications to university. They really start way before that. Instead of saying, what do you want to do? Or what university you want to go to. David Hanna is the university counselor there. He meets with students and wants to talk to them about what problems do you want to solve? What interests you in life? Wow, that really starts to get you thinking about not just what you want to do, but what do I want to do? Who am I? And it begins with all of those questions. When I was speaking to him, he drew a thing on his wall. He said, people think of progress like this, like a straight line. He says, but of course it isn't. It's like this. And he drew a wavy line, that the ups and the downs and the turns and everything. And if you speak to young people in a way that they really understand, this is how your life is going to go. The trajectory is going to be like spaghetti, and you might double back and come back and go up and go down and all these different things. But if you're prepared to meet the world in that way, then you're going to end up getting to where you need to go. And you just need to know that you need to move along with it and keep thinking of yourself in that way as this interested person with talents and keep moving forward. David Hanna gave the example of a girl who came in and said she wanted to be a doctor. And so they really probed that and said, what does that mean? And he really broke it down back to the, what do you want to do? Who are you? What is it that you want to bring to the world? And she didn't end up becoming a doctor. A lot of schools maybe would say, you want to be a doctor? Great, let's get you to be a doctor. Let's look at the schools you should go to. Let's look at the courses you need to take. But I think it's telling that they kind of brought that back and said, let's work through this. Let's think about it. And ultimately getting that student to where she did was a very different place. But for her, was exactly the right place. She was finding success there. She obviously was taking risks, putting herself out into the world in the way that young people maybe would be reluctant to. And again, I love the way he talks about it. He wants the kids to develop their story. And I think that really colors their experience at the school, and it adds a lot of gravity to their experience of the academic program. And if you ask other teachers, what they want to leave their kids with, you get different answers. But I think almost all of them would say something along the lines of, we want the kids to really leave with a sense of themselves. Getting back to David Hanna's idea of having their story, having learned their story, how their story relates to the world around them, having a sense of what is out there and what is beyond the walls of the school, what's beyond the walls of the city, and have a sense of themselves as international citizens. I think that's something that the school really wishes to give to the students for them to take when they leave. Following the theme, maybe I'm repeating it, is that this is sort of that urban school. So it feels like urban living in a sense. And again, not necessarily being in a high school so much as being in a sort of a university sort of setting with all that independence and the things that come with it. And I think that the athletic program extends all of that. It doesn't look like the typical high school athletic facility. And you walk in and you see it's this beautiful environment with all these training stations that faculty and students have access to. In any case, the focus of the athletic program is to open kids' eyes to what's happening in the world, to get them experience different things, to get them doing different activities. The competition aspect of it in the senior school is an important one. The school does compete with other schools. They do very well, and that's an important thing for them. When I met Rick DeMoranis, he looks like a trainer. He talks like a trainer. That's what he is. That's what he does. But he is sort of, when you talk to him a bit more, you see this bit of a philosophical side coming out as well, which I thought was really great. And he said it's not his intention for kids to do everything and to involve themselves in everything and to win everything or whatever, but it's just to find new ways to be happy and to find new ways to find pleasure in the world. And I just love that he sees it that way as well. I think people learn a lot from sport, and I think that's something that Rick really wants to foreground, is not just, the skills that you need to move a ball down a court or something, but all the other things, all the other skills that come from working through sports. So being a member of a team, being gracious, how to work well together. I think those are all lessons that really they want to bring forward through the athletic program as well. The wellness program is so front and center at the York School in ways that it isn't at others. And I think that in and of itself, they should be very proud of. I think where they've positioned just even the offices of the Wellness Center within the school, you can't avoid it. It's just very central to the life of the student's life within the school. They'll even go to those offices just to hang out because there's nice tables to sit at. But I also really like the perspective that they take. It's very comprehensive. It's about wellness. It's about mental health. It's about physical health. It's about all of it. They've got a considerably large staff of counselors that all work together. Alyssa Klein-Bieber, I think she runs it all up, she's the head of it, really spoke openly about how she wants this to be the place where kids stumble. And she is aware that they will. We all stumble in life. She wants them to have that experience now. So instead of saying, when kids are having trouble, or even not having trouble, just living through the life of a teenager, let's sweep it up, let's get it back together, let's get you back out into the world. It's not that at all. It's like, let's live this. This is all part of it. You need this experience. Live through it and gain the tools that you're going to need when you go out into the next step, when there won't be an office for you to go to necessarily, at least not in the same way. You won't have the same sorts of supports immediately there. And I just love that she acknowledged that this is a hard time in these kids' lives. They will stumble. And to really allow them the space to do that and recognize that that is part of the experience, and to ensure that they do that now here in this school so that when it happens later, they're prepared for it. I think every school has a period of growth. And I think it's true that the idea that a school starts out with isn't necessarily one that they can achieve in the first year. And now is the point where we've really realized all those initial visions, and the school really looks, feels, and does the things that it was intended to do, those ideas that people have had all those years. And so I think that's when they say the school has arrived. I think that's very true. I mean, what you're looking at now, they wouldn't change anything. I mean, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, there would be things that they'd want to change and want to adapt and grow, that things weren't quite where they wanted to get them to. It was still a project kind of in process, whereas now it's the York School. It's very much what it intends to be. This feature review has been published as a book, and it's also available online at ourkids.net.